Exposed, an unknown text during my son's funeral revealed an incredible truth: he is alive. Sarah could hardly breathe, standing at the edge of the burial plot where her son lay forever still. The sun seemed to mock her, shining brightly above on that dreadful day, casting shadows where no shadows should exist among gathered friends and neighbors. A cacophony of muffled sobs filled the air, mixed with tender words of sympathy spoken gently. What was meant to be a celebration of life turned into an overwhelming tsunami of loss in her heart. Jack, her sweet 16-year-old boy, had been everything to her: bright, funny, with a laugh that could light up a room. How could anyone bear such a cruel twist of fate? As she held her thumb over the engraved words on the cold stone, tears streamed down her cheeks. The noise of the grief around her became a distant echo. That's when her phone vibrated ominously in her pocket. She remembered her late-night check of social media, a mix of heartwarming memories and the harsh reality of final farewells. Curiosity plucked at her heartstrings. It had to be another heartfelt message. But no, it was from an unknown number. He is alive. He is using a different name. Find him. The word sent a jolt through her like a shockwave. Could this be possible? Her heart raced, fluttering violently at the frayed edges of hope. A cruel joke. Or a lifeline thrown to her in a moment of despair. Each scenario collided in her mind like meteors, screaming for her attention. She thought of Jack's smile, his humor, the dreams he spoke of as they baked side by side in the kitchen. He had the potential to change the world, and now he was gone. But what if he wasn't? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Regardless of her friends' well-meaning concerns urging her to let go, Sarah felt an insatiable desire to pursue this thread. Each bite of grief pulsed through her like 1,000 jagged edges. It steeled her resolve. If Jack was somewhere out there, she would find him. This was no longer just about her, it was about uncovering the truth hidden in the fabric of their town. The further she delved, the more she unearthed shadows lurking beneath the surface of her community, the whispered rumors of a drug problem that seemed to grip tight. Old whispers brushed against her earlobes, strangers avoiding her gaze, making her acutely aware of how deeply rooted the stigma ran. But with each door knocked on, and each story shared, Sarah not only conjured memories of Jack but unearthed the silent suffering hiding in plain sight. Just when she thought she had pieced together the puzzle, she received another message that pointed her directly to the sender of her first text. A nervous thrill shot through her. Was this the answer? A stranger awaited her in a dimly lit alley, a dark silhouette shifting against the cold night. With each breath, the truth hung in the air, the truth she so desperately needed. Could Jack's fate really be intertwined with the very struggles that plagued their town? A sinking realization settled in her chest, heavy with the implications of what she might find. The haunting question lingered as she drew closer, ready to face what lay ahead. Would she dare confront the life Jack may have chosen to escape, or let grief encircle her like chains? As Sarah stepped into the alley, the chill of the night enveloped her like an unsettling shroud. The faint scent of burnt rubber mixed with the dampness of the air, creating a sense of dread that clawed at her insides. She glanced around, heart pounding in her chest, struggling to steady her breath. The contours of the city blurred into a maddening backdrop as her focus narrowed in on the figure waiting for her. "Are you Sarah?" came a raspy voice, slinking through the shadows like smoke. The stranger was cloaked in darkness, merely a silhouette against the dim light filtering from a nearby street lamp. She fought the urge to retreat, pulling her resolve tight like a shield. "Yes," she answered, her voice quivering despite her best efforts. "You sent me a message." "About your son," he said, stepping into the light. His face was gaunt, etched with the traces of a hard life. "You should sit. This isn't easy." Her pulse quickened. What do you know? Is he alive? Where is he? Please, just tell me. He shifted, hands sticking deep in his pockets. I didn't know him personally, but I know what he escaped from, and it's not what you think. A rough laugh escaped Sarah's lips, tinged with bitterness. You think I can trust you just because you've shifted into the light? You're going to have to do better than that. The stranger's eyes softened. I know he was dealing with everything. The pressure, the friends he thought were family, it all turned toxic. Kids like him stop. The reality was bubbling in her gut, threatening to spill out. What are you saying? Jack got caught up in a group that they cut ties with everything that once mattered. They disappeared, but I heard whispers of his name. He's been trying to piece together a life without that baggage. He wants to start fresh. Her heart felt heavy, yet there was a flicker of hope igniting despite herself. And you're telling me this why? Why would you reach out? Because someone has to. There are worse things than the dead, Sarah. His eyes flashed with urgency. The living can be lost too. And your son? He's in a bad place mentally, physically. He needs help. Don't you want to find him before it's too late? The weight of his words depressed her. Was she really going to go down this road? Would she be brave enough? The images of Jack's laughter flooded her memory, the boy she loved suspended in time, and all of that snapped her focus back to the man standing before her. Where do I start? She asked, trembling. Her voice was steadier now, like she had grasped a lifeline thrown her way. Meet me tomorrow at the corner of 4th and Maple. It's where I think we can get answers. But Sarah, you must be prepared. Finding him might open wounds you're not ready to face. She nodded, adrenaline coursing through her. I have to know. No more doubt. As the meeting drew to a close, a notion swept through her, hope mingling with fear. What if Jack did not want to be found? What if his escape was actually his yearning for freedom from her? The thought felt like ice in her veins, with the night sky swallowing him back into shadows. The core truth rang louder than ever in her heart. She had to choose, stay in the horror of mourning or dive headfirst into her son's world, where everything was murky at best. The truth surged in, bright and painful. Tomorrow could reveal a love story redefined or a nightmare potentially unraveling beyond recognition. Sarah clenched her fists determinedly. Whatever the outcome, she would find him. And as she turned to leave the alley, the question she could hardly breathe, was she ready to confront the ghosts of what Jack had endured? The next day felt like a weight upon Sarah's chest, each hour stretching into eternity as she wrestled with the shadows of uncertainty. Morning turned into afternoon, but time felt both daunting and exhilarating. She stood in front of the mirror, the reflection staring back at her was one she barely recognized. Her hair was a disheveled mess, eyes tired with worry and wild hope. As she pulled on a faded jacket, memories of Jack danced through her mind, laughter echoing in their living room, stories of adventure he would share when he came home from school, the way he would always tuck a stray hair behind his ear when he was deep in thought. At exactly the time she was meant to meet the stranger at 4th and Maple, she found herself standing at the corner, heart pummeling against her ribcage. The streets hummed with a mundane normalcy, yet her world felt tragically out of sync. She scanned the area, searching for him, the messenger of broken truths. And then, she saw him. The man from last night stood against a lamppost, shadows cascading over his face. He acknowledged her with a slight nod, and she approached, unable to mask the tremor in her voice. So what is the plan? First, we talk. Then, we search, he said, his voice steady. But know this, it might not be straightforward. Can you handle that? Yes, she said firmly, though her knees threatened to buckle beneath her. I'm not backing down now. He led her down the street, their footsteps echoing in the silence that enveloped them. They passed graffiti-splattered walls bearing the weight of stories untold, silent witnesses to secrets buried deep. A knot tightened in her gut. What was she walking into? As they turned a corner, he stopped outside an unassuming cafe. "This is where we start. I've got connections here. But you need to be vigilant. People in Jack's world, they don't trust easily." Inside, the air was thick with the aroma of coffee and something darker, something that felt like desperation. The stranger motioned for her to sit. As she slid into a booth, the gravity of her decision settled around her. Would she really confront the reality of Jack's life? Moments passed, and soon, a woman approached their table, her appearance striking yet worn, a face that seemed to tell tales of struggles and small victories. The stranger introduced her as Maya. "She knows more about the kids in this scene than anyone else. You're going to want to listen." As Maya shared whispers of Jack's name echoing through the underground, Sarah felt her breath hitch in her throat. These tales spoke of him battling demons, but they also hinted at resilience, a fragile thread of survival woven through the chaos. "Jack is fighting," Maya said, her voice steady. "But he is also afraid. He is lost, Sarah. It's a dangerous game he is caught in." A flicker of pain crossed Maya's face. "Where can I find him?" Sarah's voice was sharp, filled with a desperation she couldn't hide. "The last place I heard he was, it's risky. But if we move soon, we might catch him before he disappears again." Her heart thudded loudly. Every nerve screamed at her to say no, to pull back from this brink. But that tenderness, that lingering hope for a reunion clawed at her. "Let us go," she said, surprised by the fierceness in her own tone. "I need to know he is okay, even if it's not what I want to hear." And as they moved toward the door, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that everything would change today. With every step, she walked closer to the truth of her son's world, and every truth held both the weight of her fear and the promise of closure. His name echoed in her mind, a mantra intertwined with love and anxiety. Would it be a reunion fueled by joy or regret? Just as they stepped outside, a commotion erupted across the street. A group of young adults were gathered, faces obscured by the sudden chaos. A shiver raced down Sarah's spine. What if Jack was among them? "Sarah, wait!" The stranger called out, but it was too late. Her instinct propelled her forward, toward the noise, heart racing with trepidation and anticipation. What awaited her on the other side of that crowd? In that moment, with the tension pulling tighter than ever, Sarah was left with the lingering question: would she find the son she thought she had lost, or reveal the darkness that had consumed him? Sarah pushed through the throng, adrenaline fueling her steps. The crowd was loud, voices blending into a jarring cacophony. She barely registered the shouts, the laughter, the flashes of anger. Her sole focus was on finding Jack. The stranger followed closely, his presence a tether in the chaos. "Sarah! Stay close," he urged, but she didn't waver. She was a mother on a mission, threading through bodies lost in fervor, desperate to uncover the truth. As she neared the center of the turmoil, her heart raced faster. She had the wild thought that maybe Jack was there, at that very moment, laughing like he used to. The image was almost comforting until reality sank in. She had no idea how he'd changed, how much he might have lost along the way. Then, just past the shifting figures, she spotted him. It took her breath away. A young man, with tousled hair, a style that screamed rebellion, laughed with a group around a makeshift stage, oblivious to her presence. Jack! The realization hit like a wave crashing over her. But he was different. A shadow lurked around his bright smile, a smile she had missed so desperately. Her instincts kicked in, urging her forward, but just as she reached for him, the stranger's hand gripped her arm. "Wait. We need to approach carefully. This crowd can be unpredictable," he warned. Every molecule in Sarah's body buzzed with the urge to run up to him, to wrap her arms around him and never let go again. Yet she hesitated, taking in the scene around them. The joy in their faces was intoxicating, but there was also a sense of danger, like a tide that could easily pull her under. "What is he doing here?" The stranger leaned closer, his voice tight. "These kids, they live a fast life. We need to protect him, and maybe get him out of here." A knot tightened in her chest. Could Jack really be lost to this? The uplifting laughter around her felt like a cruel joke. Inside, a fight stirred between hope and despair. "Jack!" She finally called out, her voice cutting through the noise. Time slowed as his head whipped around, eyes wide, searching. Her heart felt like it might explode, a pulsating mix of dread and hope. When his gaze finally met hers, confusion washed over his features. He stepped back from his friends. "Mom? Is that you?" A flicker of disbelief and concern crossed his face, and in that moment, Sarah felt the world around them fade to silence. "Jack, I was looking for you." Her voice cracked, the gravity of the moment finally settling in. Before she could take another step, he glanced at the crowd behind him. "You shouldn't be here." I can't talk now." There was panic in his eyes, and yet somewhere, a glimmer of her old Jack lingered. "Please. Just listen to me." She held her breath, hopeful that he would step toward her. The stranger beside her kept a close watch, both protective and wary. "We need to get him out of here, Sarah. Now," he urged. "Before things escalate." Jack took another hesitant glance at the group. They were starting to murmur, sensing the weight of this small confrontation. The pulse of energy shifted, and Sarah felt the tension spiking. "Mom, I can't," he whispered, his voice laced with fear and rebellion. "They're not, they depend on me. I can't just leave them." A wave of desperation crashed over her. How could he choose this life? The choice felt heavy like stone. "Jack, they might not have your best interests at heart. You can't trust them." But before she could say anything more, a sharp shout erupted from the crowd. A figure came barreling toward them, and the air thickened with threat. Sarah's heart raced, ready to shield her son from whatever darkness loomed. "Jack!" She cried again, grappling with the reality unfolding before her. He took a deep breath, stepping back, uncertainty clouding his face. "I can't just walk away. You don't understand." Her voice was a whisper now, laced with urgency. "But I need to know you're safe." Would she have a chance to pull him away from this before it was too late? Could they wrestle him from the glimmer of the life he thought he wanted? With the crowd closing in, Sarah realized they were running out of time. Every heartbeat echoed the question, how far was Jack willing to go to stay in a world that could lose him forever? Just as the crowd surged forward, Sarah's world hung in the balance. Would they be torn apart again or finally find a way back to each other? The crowd swelled as tension hung thick in the air, making it hard for Sarah to breathe. She could see Jack's expression shift, the flicker of confusion mingling with something darker. The shouting from behind them grew louder, drawing closer. She felt the stranger's grip tighten on her arm, a silent reminder to stay grounded. "Jack, please." She implored, desperation turning her voice into a cracked whisper. "You don't have to do this. We can go home. I just want to talk to you, to understand." But he shook his head, lips pressed into a thin line. "You don't get it, Mom. This is my life now. They're counting on me." At that moment, the group around Jack shifted, and a tall figure stepped forward, eyes fixed on Sarah with a menacing intensity. "You need to leave, lady. You're ruining what we have here." Fear washed over her. This wasn't just a confrontation, it felt like a challenge. Sarah could see the underlying threat, a pulse of defiance echoing from the faces surrounding him. They were protective of him, but at what cost? "What do you mean counting on you?" she managed to ask, her heart aching as she made sense of the situation. "These people. They don't care about you, Jack. They'll use you until you break." Jack's uncertainty was palpable. He turned his head, scanning his friends, who now closed ranks around him, their gazes fierce and unyielding. For a heartbeat, Sarah thought she saw doubt in his eyes, as if her words were penetrating the haze of loyalty and camaraderie. "Just come with me for a minute," she pleaded, stepping closer, her voice shaking with emotion. We can talk about this, please. But the moment was interrupted by a roar from the crowd, a wave of anger that surged toward them, igniting their surroundings with energy. Get away from him! Someone shouted, and suddenly hands pushed her back, trying to separate mother from son. No! Sarah screamed, fighting against the tide. The panic rose, wrapping around her throat like a vice. Jack, don't listen to them. You don't have to stay here. Through the chaos, she locked eyes with her son. Time slowed, and for a fleeting instant, everything else faded away. In that gaze, she saw years of memories, laughter, and love, an intertwining of hope and despair. But then, a new voice broke through. Let us take him. A figure moved forward, eyes brimming with intensity, radiating a dangerous charisma. They don't get it, Jack. You're one of us now. The gravity of the moment twisted inside Sarah. This was more than a struggle for her son's attention, this was a battle for his very soul. Jack! She cried out, her heart shattering. You have the choice to walk away. Please. But the moment stretched, and Jack hesitated, caught in the center of conflict. Torn between the life she had raised him in and the allure of something wild, vibrant, and yet possibly destructive. Then it happened. One of his friends shoved him, stating, make a choice. Are you with us or with her? As if in slow motion, Jack blinked, his heart racing in uncertainty. The question loomed large between them, and Sarah could see the struggle playing out behind his eyes. Then a loud commotion erupted, pulling everyone's attention to the edge of the gathering. A figure in black, police officers. The crowd began to scatter, chaos erupting as they realized the authorities had arrived. Jack! Sarah yelled, sensing a fleeting opportunity as panic spread like a wildfire. We can leave now. This is our chance. But just as his expression shifted from confusion to clarity, the crowd surged again. His friends were already pulling him away from her. Jack! She shouted one final time, a plea echoing in the deafening noise. And then he was gone, swallowed by the chaos, heart racing, no longer knowing if she was lunging toward him or away from all of this madness. Sarah felt the reality settle like a weight on her chest. What if she had lost him? The stranger beside her gripped her arm tighter, pulling her back to reality. We need to get out of here, he urged, but something deep inside her anchored her feet to the ground. Could she really let him go again? As the crowd scattered, Sarah's mind raced. This was not over. She had to bring Jack back before it was too late. But how far would she go? That question lingered as they disappeared into the night. What would Sarah sacrifice to reclaim her son? Would the truth be enough to bring them back together? The streetlights flickered overhead as Sarah stumbled into the chaos. The taste of adrenaline left a metallic tang in her mouth, amplifying the sense of urgency swelling inside her. She could hardly recognize the world around her. It twisted and writhed, filled with shadows and loud voices, all blurring into a deafening melody of fear and confusion. Where's Jack? She gasped, not to anyone in particular, but to the universe, as if calling out would summon him back. With each echoed shout of the crowd, her heart ached deeper. He felt so close, yet miles away. The stranger beside her, who had clutched her arm too tightly, released her to merge into the whirlwind. You need to calm down. He shouted, but his voice couldn't reach her over the chaos. Sarah pushed her way through the dispersing crowd, seeking any glimpse, any sign of her son. Jack! She cried again. The name reverberated around her, a beacon of hope desperately thrown into the night. Power surged in her limbs, fueled by the thought of him lost, drowning in an abyss of anger and rebellion. Surrounded by people who didn't have his best interests at heart. Just ahead, she caught sight of a figure slipping between two alleyways. The dark silhouette seemed familiar. Jack! She called. Her feet moved instinctively, bridging the distance between them. She turned the corner, the hard pavement pressing against her soles. Breathing heavily, she made it into a narrow lane where the shadows clung tighter. The alley had an eerie silence, as if it held its breath, waiting for something to unfold. Then she spotted him. Jack stood turned away, shoulders tense, clutching something in his fist, face hidden. Relief and dread twisted in her stomach. "Jack, please, talk to me." He froze but didn't turn around. The silence between them stretched like a taut string, ready to snap. She took a step closer. "You don't have to do this, sweetheart. I know you're scared." His voice trembled as he spoke, low and hesitant. "You don't get it, Mom. This is who I am now." "No." Sarah shot back, desperation clawing at her throat. "Who are they?" "This isn't you, Jack. This is just a phase. It's not worth losing everything." Her heart raced with every word, fearing the potential loss of her son's essence. Finally, he turned, eyes glistening in the dim light. Anguish etched into his features. "You don't understand what it feels like to belong to something. They believe in me. They see my potential. And I don't." The hurt in her voice cut through the air, raw and heavy. "I've always believed in you. I've been with you since day one. Can't you see they're using you?" Jack clenched his jaw, his grip tightening around whatever he held. In that moment, Sarah noticed it, a crumpled piece of paper. A message, perhaps. Or a plea. "Jack, what is that?" she asked, nodding towards his fist. "Please, show me." He hesitated, glancing at the paper before looking back at her with tears brimming in his eyes. "It's a letter." "A letter?" Her heart thumped louder. "From who?" "In this life, Mom, it's complicated." He hesitated, seemed to weigh his next words. "But it's not what you think. Maybe it can change everything." Hope flickered within her. "Then let us read it together. We can figure this out." But the moment caught on a jagged edge, as more voices echoed from the main street, reminding them both of the impending danger. Jack's expression shifted as he stared back into the darkness, torn between the chaos outside and the fragile bond holding them together. "Please, Jack." she begged, moving closer, reaching out, but now doubt clouded his features. Just as he opened the letter, a shout rang out, shattering the brief taste of hope like glass smashing on concrete. "There he is. We found him." They both jerked their heads toward the sound. Sarah's pulse raced. Would this be the moment she lost him forever? "Go!" she practically shouted. "Run!" But Jack froze, caught in the decision of loyalty versus love. And just like that, the letter slipped from his grasp, fluttering to the ground as he took a step toward the chaos. "Jack!" But the moment slipped through her fingers like grains of sand. What truth lied within that letter? And could it save them both, or would it only tear them further apart? Sarah felt the world shrink around her as Jack stepped toward the chaos. It was as if every other sound faded into a muffled whisper, drowning under the roar of her heart pounding furiously in her chest. The alley was no longer just a narrow passage but a gaping chasm that threatened to pull them apart. "Jack, please." she pleaded again, stretching out her arms, desperate to reach him. "Think about what you're doing. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just come back with me." Each word came out strained, filled with fear, love, and an overwhelming urge to protect. That he hesitated, inching closer to footsteps echoing from the street, eyes darting back and forth. The torn paper lay forgotten at their feet, a bridge they both needed to cross but couldn't. What had it contained? Was it a lifeline or a trap set by the very people he hesitated to leave behind? "Mom, they need me," Jack finally responded, voice shaking as he tried to reclaim his strength. "I can't just turn my back on them. I can't." There was a flicker of determination in his words, but the way his brow furrowed told a different story. A battle was brewing in the depths of his heart. "It's not about them, Jack. It's about us. You're my son. I love you." The intensity of her voice sent an electric tremor through the alley, mingling with the distant roars of the crowd. Those people don't care like I do. They don't know the real you. As she took a step closer, she saw the glimmer of realization in his eyes the moment when he questioned everything he believed. But what if they're right? What if I finally belong somewhere? His words were fragile, like glass, threatening to shatter. You don't know how that feels, to be accepted for who you are. No, she insisted gently, softening her tone. I understand more than you know. I lost myself once thinking I had to fit in. Jack, I want you to be yourself, not someone else's idea of what you should be. Let us figure this out, together. For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them, and Sarah watched as hope waged war against doubt in his chest. Before either of them could move, a group of youths stepped into the alley. Their laughter was sharp, cutting through the space like a knife, filled with an intimidating energy. There he is. One of them shouted, pointing. Let's go. Jack's eyes widened in panic, the reality of their presence crashing down hard. Sarah saw him shift, a boy once vibrant and carefree now standing amongst darkness, teetering on the edge of a decision that could change everything. Stay with me. She begged, heart racing as they drew closer. But as the crowd's murmur swelled into a shout, she felt the panic clawing at the edges of her heart. They wanted him back, wanted to pull him into shadows she couldn't follow. The bond they once shared now felt so fragile against the rising tide of chaos. Then, amidst the shouting, she spotted something fluttering at her feet. It was the letter, a crumpled piece of paper, an echo of their fading connection. Jack! She cried, and without thinking, she lunged to scoop it up. This might be what changes everything. His eyes hardened with uncertainty. I don't care about that. I have to go. Suddenly, the air crackled with an unseen energy, leaving Sarah on the brink of desperation. What if this is a way for you to break free? He paused, caught in a storm of emotions, looking between her and the looming crowd. Please. She urged once more, feeling the weight of their moment together shift like the ground beneath them. But the voices were closing in, the choice looming larger than life itself. Would he step into an uncertain future with her or dive back into the darkness that beckoned him? The laughter grew louder, and Sarah could hear the chants echoing through her thoughts. Whatever lay within that letter could be the answer, but would they have the time to find out? Jack, I promise. And as he looked back at her, fear and resolve clashing in his gaze, Sarah realized she might have only moments left to save him. Would he reach for the truth she held, or would he vanish into the night? Jack! Before she could stop him, he made his choice. But would it be the right one? The tension crackled, and the air filled with impending dread. What decision would define their fate? Jack's feet felt rooted to the damp ground, the clamor surrounding him clashing with the rhythm of his racing heart. Sarah's voice, filled with an urgency that tore at his insides, reached him through the haze. His mind spun wildly with the implications of her words, each one a tether binding him to the boy he once was. But could he really turn away from this new path? He glanced at the group, shadows dancing with reckless abandon, eyes shimmering with a shared purpose that made him feel both exhilarated and afraid. I have to go, he whispered, though the words tasted bitter on his tongue. Sarah, losing color from her face, stepped closer, her eyes wide and glassy with a mix of hope and despair. No, Jack. Please. Listen to me. Mom, they're counting on me. The desperation in his voice cracked, splitting the moment. What do you see in them that you don't see in me? What makes them more worthy of your loyalty? The hurt poured from her words, an explosive force that sent shockwaves between them. The crowd began to chant his name, a rhythmic pulsing that wrapped around him like a boa constrictor, tightening as he tried to breathe. He could feel their eagerness, their belief in him, but a part of him recoiled. Did they really know him? Did they see the boy who used to laugh over breakfast or the son who would forage for wildflowers with her? Suddenly, the torn letter in Sarah's hand fluttered in the wind as if desperately trying to grab his attention. That crumpled salvation felt more real now, a piece of their shared history that could perhaps change everything. He looked closely, his eyes darting over the wrinkles and creases that echoed the pain of past decisions. Jack. Sarah's voice grew more frantic, cutting through the noise. This could hold the answers. Don't you want to know what it says? What if it just hurts us more? He shot back, the shadows in his heart swirling with doubt. For a brief moment, a ghost of a smile tugged at Sarah's lips, a flicker of hope in the storm. It doesn't matter if it hurts. What matters is knowing the truth. Together. The weight of her words settled on his chest. Was it time to seek the truth? The world around him blurred, and for a heartbeat, he saw a future, a life unshackled from the expectations pressing against him. A boy's laughter echoed in his mind, memories of simpler days overflowing with joy. You've always accepted me, he murmured, an almost instinctive confession, as his gaze held hers. Tension thickened, and suddenly, Jack felt fire in his veins, a yearning for authenticity overpowering the fear. What if I want to unlock whatever is in that letter? He asked tentatively, heart pounding against the walls of his chest. Yes. Sarah breathed, eyes glistening. But you have to trust me. You have to come back. Yet just as he was about to step toward her, the youths surged forward, their shouts a cacophony that threatened to drown out everything. Jack! Come on! They yelled, urgency lacing their tone. He stood frozen, caught between past and future, between Sarah's unwavering love and the intoxicating promise of acceptance from the crowd. Mom, his voice dipped low, uncertainty creeping in again. I don't know what they want from me, I do. She reached out, desperation pushing her words past the choking fear inside her. I want you to know you can be loved for who you are. Not for what they need you to be. Her plea washed over him like a flicker of light breaking through his clouded judgment. The realization hit him hard, everything he ever wanted was right in front of him. But before he could respond, a hand clamped on his shoulder. The leader of the group had arrived, his presence imposing and electric. This way, Jack. And in that instant, the future shifted beneath his feet again, darkness whispering promises. Would he step into the light with Sarah, or plunge deeper into the uncertainty that tugged at his core? Mom. Jack's voice trembled as he glanced back and forth, the urgency of the moment colliding with the depth of his emotions. The pull was strong, potent, and he felt on the verge of a decision that could define everything. With his heart pounding, Jack faced the impossible choice. Would he embrace his mother's love or let the allure of the crowd pull him into the unknown? What lay beyond this moment? Would the truth become his salvation or his demise? Jack's mind raced while his heart felt heavy. He could sense the tide of the crowd, their energy pulling at him like a current, just as he hesitated to take a step toward his mother. Sarah's face, framed by sorrow, represented everything he had ever known. It was warm, familiar, but so easily overshadowed by the thrill brewing around him. Jack, please. Sarah's voice cracked, etched with raw emotion. I can't lose you to them, I can't lose you to this. But the leader's grip tightened on his shoulder, the man's intensity washing over him like a wave. We need you, he said, voice firm and compelling. There was power in those words, a collective pulse behind them, urging Jack toward the promise of something greater than himself. What if the thrill of belonging outweighed the warmth of love? He could feel the conflict inside him, a battle thrumming in his core. Each option felt more appealing and daunting than the last. The letter, still lingering in his mind, pulsed with curiosity and a longing to uncover answers lodged deep in his heart. Mom! He shouted, forcing the words out through the fog of indecision. What if they're right? What if I can really be someone if I join them? The anguish on Sarah's face darkened. You'll be someone, just not the person you've always been. Jack felt his chest constrict as those words sank in. For a moment, the crowd's cheers faded into an echo, replaced by the soft melody of his childhood. Laughter, playing in the fields, was submerged beneath the noise, buried beneath expectations he could no longer find the energy to uphold. Sarah took a step closer, lowering her voice. It's not about becoming. It's about remembering. Remember who you truly are. Tears threatened to spill from Jack's eyes. He wanted to remember, to hold on to every fragment of joy that characterized his boyhood. Yet, at this moment, it felt like the rest of the world was peering in, waiting on his every word and action to define his destiny. Jack. The leader's urgency pulled him back, and the voice of the crowd once again swelled with expectation. They're waiting for a decision. Your decision. He turned and saw the multitude's faces, each shining with anticipation and faith. They had woven a narrative that no longer involved just his choice, but the stakes of countless lives beyond his own. Yet, behind them loomed uncertainty. Perhaps their devotion was a mask deceiving, clinging. What if I fail? He croaked, vulnerability seeping out. Failure is part of the journey, the leader said, his tone shifting to something more nurturing, almost fatherly. We all have stories to tell, Jack. We rise together. The thought of being part of something bigger was siren-like, pulling at the core of his being. But Sarah was still there, the tether that sang of belonging, echoing with deeper meaning. Mom, Jack whispered, pain slicing through him as he searched her face. Whatever you decide, I'll be here. Just know, you don't need to lose yourself along the way. Her words ignited a fragile hope inside him, a flicker he wasn't ready to let die. As he stood amidst swirling chaos, clarity began to peel away the doubts. His heart swelled with something unexpected. Maybe he could carry both the promise of acceptance and the love that had always been his anchor. With a deep breath, Jack faced the crowd once more, pulse quickening. Together. He exclaimed suddenly, heart hammering in rhythm with the swell of their energy. I want to know the truth. Together. The excitement erupted around him, cheers erupting like fireworks. In that instant, he felt the weight lift, though uncertainty still gnawed at his insides. Yet, nestled in that decision lurked an unknown: would pursuing the truth ultimately lead him back to Sarah or forward into something completely new? As the crowd surged, he felt pulled in the direction of his choice. But as he stepped forward, a blast of wind caught the letter from Sarah's grasp, sending it fluttering away like a wisp of smoke. Jack! She cried out, reaching for it as it danced away. His heart sank. Was this a sign? Would he lose both paths by chasing one? The chase for the letter led him into the crowd, and he glanced back for one final glimpse of his mother. But would he find the truth he desired, or would he realize too late that the journey was constructed on a fragile foundation? In that moment, Jack could feel the very air crackling around him, a promise suspended in time. What he would discover next could change everything. Would he truly embrace both worlds, or would he be forced to choose a side? The air crackled with tension as Sarah watched Jack disappear into the crowd, her heart shattering deeper than ever. The letter, the crumpled paper that had slipped from his fingers, became a fleeting embodiment of hope lost. Jack! She screamed, voice raw, as the crowd surged like a tidal wave, swallowing her son into their midst. In that moment of chaos, a palpable silence fell over her, a suffocating stillness amidst the fray of noise. The earlier rush of adrenaline transformed to dread, an inescapable realization settling in: she could lose him again. What had begun as a journey to reclaim her son now teetered on the brink of catastrophe. Sarah! The stranger grabbed her arm, breaking her trance. We need to go now. But her instinct forced her to resist. She couldn't walk away. Not when she felt the thrum of uncertainty linger in the air. She turned again toward the fray, desperately scanning the faces around her. Jack! She called out once more, voice trembling. She was met with only the roar of the crowd, youthful exuberance charged with a desperation she could hardly understand. Behind her, the stranger tugged at her sleeve, urgency lacing his tone. If you stay, you could get caught up in this too. We have to leave before no. She interrupted. Fear and determination blazed in her eyes. I will not abandon him. I won't let him go again. Just then, through the shifting bodies, she caught a glimmer of something, a flash of her son's unmistakable hair, a silhouette of his essence. "Jack, hold on." It surged through her, the thought that he still might hear her, might still know she was here, still fighting for him. As if spurred by her cry, Jack broke through the throng, his face lit by a solemn expression. For a heartbeat, their eyes locked, and the world around them faded into muted colors. She saw the man he had been, the boy she loved unconditionally. But there was a new weight in his chest, a burden he had begun to carry. "Mom!" he cried, striding toward her. Yet the moment shattered as the crowd parted, hostility flaring as his friends tried to catch him, to pull him back. The leader glared at Jack, a ferocity burning in his gaze. "You don't walk away from us." The weight of loyalty pressed down on Jack, flickering like a flame threatened with wind. Sarah pushed forward, her heart hammering in her chest. "Jack! Remember what we talked about, it's about the truth. You don't have to choose them over me." The charged silence held between them stretched painfully as Jack's inner turmoil played out visibly. He faltered, glancing back at the gang surrounding him, then back to Sarah. I don't know who I am anymore." She felt a crack in her heart, a fragile fissure that threatened to break open. "You're you, Jack. You've always been. You're my son, and I love you just as you are, baggage and all." The emotional turbulence danced in his gaze. Jack's eyes, once so vibrant, were now clouded by confusion. "What if they see me differently? What if I'm not enough for you?" His voice shook. "Then let us find out together," Sarah urged, shoving through the treacherous din of shouts and whispers. The decision hung above them like an unbroken horizon. Isn't that worth risking everything for? Jack hesitated, the space between chaos and clarity shrinking. Seconds felt like hours, and Sarah could see it in him, a flicker, the beginning of hope sparking in the shadows of uncertainty. Just as the leader surged forward, ready to reclaim his hold, Sarah pressed on. "We can face whatever lies ahead, but you need to make the choice. I don't want to lose you again." His voice was a mix of vulnerability and longing, his heart battling against fear. Just as she stepped closer, reaching out, the weight of expectation seemed too immense to bear. "Then come back. Come home with me. Let us find out what's in that letter together," Sarah called, hoping to pluck the truth from the raging storm of fear surrounding them. "Jack!" the leader shouted, his voice filled with frustration. "You're thrown away here. Choose." Before he could respond, the wind caught the crumpled letter. As it swirled into the air, dancing above their heads. Time seemed to still, the moment pulling all eyes toward that fragile piece of paper embodying their past, yet embodying a future that was still unwritten. With a sharp intake of breath, Jack took a step forward, eyes darting from his friends to Sarah. Maybe I need to find out what truly matters. Together." Sarah's voice rang clear, infused with love and resolve. The crowd began to shift, their energy flickering as if teetering on Jack's next movement. Finally, he made the choice. With a leap of faith, he took a step towards his mom, releasing the grip of fame, pressure, and expectation that had held him hostage for too long. "Let us see it together." The moment hung pregnant with possibility, and then, as if summoned, they both lunged for the fallen letter, connecting in a collective rush. Fingers grasped at truth, tearing the veil of shadows. And suddenly, reality exploded in a whirlwind of emotions. Words sprang forth, a story of loss, love, a promise of hope that spoke of struggles he didn't have to face alone. Jack turned to look at Sarah, and she saw it, the clarity illuminating his spirit. As she held him close, warmth radiated through her core. "We're going to be okay, Jack." "Together," he echoed, tears swelling in his eyes. The storm that had threatened to rip apart their bond was now a gentle rain, washing away the dust and confusion. They had found each other amidst chaos, and each heartbeat resonated with the truth of a bond unbreakable, and as they stood, bathed in vulnerability and love, Sarah knew not just in words, but in the marrow of her being this journey, however tumultuous, would lead them to a brighter, more genuine place. In that moment, every ounce of uncertainty dissipated. They would face whatever lay ahead hand in hand, an unbreakable pair forged anew. And Sarah vowed to never let the shadows consume her son again. He was here, he was alive, and together they would uncover the truth. This was just the beginning of healing, rewriting their story in a way the world would never forget. So right now, I'm urging you, don't wait anymore. You need to subscribe now to not miss the heartwarming journeys we'll share next. Leave a like to help this story reach more souls searching for hope. Comment below on your thoughts. Your feelings about transformation matter, and we want to hear from you. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this life-changing message. Only true fans can really understand the importance of supporting our journey together.